Thanks again for spending time with the Happy English podcast. I remember the time I first started doing this in 2014. I was killing time on social media when I first knew about podcasts. Those were interesting times. Time? Times? Let's discuss.
Welcome to another Happy English podcast coming to you from New York City. And here's your English teacher, Michael.
All right. Thank you, John, and thanks, everyone. It's Michael here from Happy English, and I help people speak English better. And this is Happy English Podcast, episode 705. Things you can do with time. The word time collocates with a number of different words and phrases in English. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a clear idea about how to use time. So let's get the ball rolling. The word time itself is both a countable and uncountable noun. And when the word time is used to talk about experience or a situation, it's a countable noun. You can say things like a time or the time or one time. For example, there was a time when most people didn't have a mobile phone. Do you remember the time we went to Miami? It was a lot of fun. I remember one time we went to a concert in Central Park. That was awesome. On the other hand, when the word time means clock time, it's not countable. You can say things like sometime, anytime, or a lot of time. Here are some examples. If you want to have a meeting this week, I only have time on Friday morning. Do you have any time to talk this afternoon? I have a lot of free time next week. By the way, when you want to know the current time, you can ask someone, "What time is it?" A more polite way to ask a stranger would be something like this. "Excuse me, do you have the time?" The time. This phrase, the time, means the current time. Do you have the time? You can also ask someone if they have time to do something. The grammar pattern is have time followed by a to verb. You know, the infinitive. Here are some examples. Do you have time to finish this report? Do you have time to help me clean the garage? You can also have time for something. After for, you can use a noun or a gerund. For example, I didn't have time for lunch today. During our trip to New York City, we had time for visiting everywhere we wanted to go. When you need someone to do something right now, you can ask them like this. Do you have time now? Or do you have any time now? So when you ask someone if they have time, you want to know if the person has enough time in their schedule in order to do something. And when you ask someone if they have the time, you're asking for the current time. You can also use spend and take with the word time. When we use spend time, we usually put the person using the time as the subject of the sentence. In other words, the subject of spend time is a person. For example, I spent so much time working on that marketing report. Jen spends a lot of time scrolling through Instagram. Do you spend time with your family on the holidays?
You spend time with your family? Because a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be a real man.
On the other hand, when we use take time, the subject of the sentence is usually it. As you know, it is used as the subject of the sentence when we talk about time. It's 5 o'clock. It's Monday. Now, here are some examples. It took so much time to work on that marketing report. It takes time for Jen to scroll through Instagram. It takes no time at all to make breakfast. So let's compare. I spent so much time working on that marketing report. I spent time. It took so much time to work on that marketing report. It took time. So, I spent time. It took time. You can also make time to do something, which means to arrange your schedule in order to do that thing. For example, please make time to study English every day. I make time to exercise in the morning. And with the same meaning, you can also make time for something or make time for someone. For example, I asked my Japanese language teacher if she could make time for me on Saturday for a lesson. Jerry said he makes time for meditation every morning. And finally, you can kill time. Don't worry, killing time isn't a crime. When you kill time, you do something to make time seem to pass quickly, especially when you're waiting for something else. Here are some examples. I got to the airport early, so I killed time at the bookshop. We killed time before the meeting, having coffee and donuts and chatting. Keep in mind, the best way to remember this and any vocabulary is to take the word or phrase, write it in a sentence that's true for you or true in your world, and then memorize your sentences. Well, that's it for this English lesson podcast. Thanks for making time to check it out. By the way, if you'd like to get more practice using your English, why don't you join my Podcast Learners Study Group? There, you can make new international friends, join me for live group coaching every week, plus get the PDF transcript and audio download for every Happy English podcast in the past and in the future. And each episode has exercises where you can practice this English point with speaking and writing checked by me. To learn more or to see some of the example sentences from this lesson, just visit myhappyenglish.com and choose Podcast Lesson 705. Remember, learning another language is not easy, but it's not impossible, and I'm here to help you on your journey.
This podcast was brought to you by Happy English. Please visit myhappyenglish.com. Show your support for Happy English by leaving us a review. Get English, get happy, Happy English.